Welcome to another Instant Reaction. Andy Ari On3 presented by BetMGM. We're here at Clemson. Clemson and LSU are about to kick off, but we have to talk about what happened in Tallahassee. Ari, do we start with Alabama or Florida State?
I don't know.
I'm shocked both ways.
Few thoughts out of the gate. One, I'm sorry, Alabama. I made the comment to Andy on the way to the stadium that this is going to be a nice window of time where we can just relax, eat our dinner.
We did have this discussion on the show, though. What would be the most crazy result that could happen? And we laughed it off like it was an impossibility.
So one thing that's going to get lost in today's shuffle with all the things that are going on before we get into the meat and potatoes of our video is that Lee Corso, the legend, picked Florida State, was the only person on the panel that did it, and he's going out with a bang.
Sunshine Scooter. They did it for the Sunshine Scooter.
So my opinion, Andy, on where we start is with the winner.
All
because
right.
They deserve that.
Thomas Castellanos, I'm not going to pull the Shaq. I was not familiar with your game. We were familiar with your game. We didn't think you could do that. And it was amazing. And I'm sorry for all the jokes I told after you opened your mouth over and over again this summer. You were right.
I'm sorry for calling you a short king. You're just a king.
You were right.
Dude, I wrote a column. You wrote a column. Different sides of it. I have a feeling that's going to happen again tonight.
Yeah.
But you know, we promote talking trash on this show.
Yes. And so we're glad he did it.
And there is a distinct risk that you take in talking that trash, right? Because if you don't come through, you get your butt kicked at home. Everybody ridicules you for the things that you say. But when you say what he said with the vigor in which he said it multiple times, it wasn't just a slip up to Pete Nakos. He said it again and reiterated, and then come out and win that football game. Let me ask you this. I asked you, Andy, I'm going to ask the listeners to this. Did you see a single analyst, including us, pick Florida State with the points this week?
Even to cover.
Just
even
to
cover.
Let alone just win.
Cover and lose.
That game.
Yeah.
That's absolutely insane. And my God, when you think about someone going from being a loudmouth on Friday to a king of Tallahassee in 24 hours, I mean, there's no other way to put it, but holy crap.
Our guy J.D. Piquel picked Florida State.
Oh, he did?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay. Well,
he's the king of war chant right now.
Yeah, wow. I mean, talk about the balls to do that. I mean, I wouldn't have done it in a million years. In fact, I'm not ashamed to admit that I hadn't even heard of half their starters coming into the game.
I'd heard of them because I remembered them from their previous schools.
They had 23 incoming transfers this year, and according to Max Olson at ESPN, our former colleague, they had the 12th most returning production in the portal coming.
Yeah.
So the narrative for me, and it's something that we need to talk about, I mean, going into the season, is whether or not we were too quick to judge Mike Norvell in terms of whether or not the portal could be a reliable thing for him. Obviously, there's going to be ups and downs. Last year was the lowest of lows.
Yeah.
But do you have a restored faith in him as a coach and as a roster builder after what you just saw there?
What I say all season, he didn't forget how to coach last season. But I didn't expect him to come out and be able to beat Alabama. I thought, okay, they're going to get better. They're going to win, 7 or 8 games. They'll be a bowl team. But could they be a good team? I didn't know, because coming back from what you had last year, coming back from those depths, trying to rebuild your chemistry, trying to rebuild everything, I didn't know how well he'd do that. But I will say, 2 coordinator hires. We liked the Tony White hire. We were not sure about the Gus Malzahn hire.
Yeah.
Because Gus Malzahn was leaving UCF, probably would have been fired at UCF. Gus Malzahn's offense looked like vintage Gus Malzahn today.
And I think the thing that is interesting is that we're learning about the sport as it evolves with you guys. And you would have told me, like, back 2 years ago when Mike Norvell was a candidate for the Alabama job and Kalen Deboer was a candidate for an Alabama job, you obviously want to go with the person that is going to respect the recruiting process enough to sign top 10 classes year over year. Alabama has done that. Kalen Deboer has done his part. If you would have told me that Mike Norvell was a candidate for Alabama, I was like, how could you possibly go with a person who has, used the portal maybe excessively in order to build one of the most storied programs that has gotten to that mark under Nick Saban because of dominant recruiting? And I was like, this is not a way to build a program. And, like, listen, we don't know if that was just the beginning of last year's Florida State arc for Alabama. We don't know what's to come for Bama.
Well, we'll talk about that, but
the thing I was going to say, though, is that, like, do you have, like, a restored thought process or a different thought process on roster building and whether or not there are actually multiple ways to skin a cat? Because the thing that we loved about Alabama the entire offseason was, well, we don't know who their quarterback's going to be.
But we like everybody else.
Everybody else is really good. And then you go out and you get your – listen, That wasn't a fluky game. They got their butts kicked.
They did, and that's the thing about this. So let me read you some numbers. Florida State ran the ball 49 times for 230 yards. 49 times. That's a just consistent mashing. It's 4.7 yards a carry. It's not spectacular in terms of yards per carry.
It's
but
mashing.
when you can run that many times for that many yards per carry, it is a dominant performance. Tommy Castellanos. We got a rebrand going on here. It's Tommy Castellanos.
His name,
Tommy, which is what everybody called him anyway. But 9 of 14 for 152 yards. That may not sound like much, but it's actually really efficient. And I'll tell you whose stat lines that would remind me of. Nick Marshall back at Auburn when he played for Gus.
Yeah, well, I mean, there's a whole secondary conversation about how Gus Malzahn is like an Alabama slayer because of how frequent he won it. He didn't win it every year, but he won frequently enough at Auburn to make that statement a reality. But that the thing that stands out to me from that game more than anything, Andy, is that 4th and 1. They were clinging to a 7-point lead. You and I were sitting next to each other watching it. We were writing our columns. And I was like, can you go for it? Andy looked at me and goes, I'm not sure that you can. And I thought I agreed with that. Then they sent out the offense and
they sent out the offense,
the ball.
Just hand it off straight up the middle.
They opened a great hole. Just like, it was just I don't know, like I have to do a top 10 ranking tonight.
Shout out Herb Hand, Florida State offensive line coach, because they were opening holes.
Where do you rank Florida State?
I got to see the rest of the night, but.
I mean, is that a top 10 team now?
Well, for now. We got to see him play some other games. If we're doing the ranking, and I like the Doug Lemarie's style of ranking, where you just go based on what's happened in the season. So we're just going based on this week. Sure, throw him in the top 10.
Yeah, I don't know.
Now, here's the thing about Alabama. They have now lost to 4 unranked teams under Kalen DeBoer. And you can say what you will about rankings and their accuracy. I will point out to you that Nick Saban, from I believe 2008. To 2021, when they lost to Texas A&M, won 100 games in a row against unranked teams.
Yeah.
DeBoer has lost 4 out of 14 to unranked teams. They do not lose under Nick Saban after year 1. Remember, they lost to Louisiana in a row in year 1 under Saban. Year 2, they won the first 12 games of year 2. The first game they lost in 2008 under Nick Saban was the SEC championship game to Florida. So that's how good he made them quickly. And then that's what he left Kalen DeBoer. He left Kalen DeBoer as good of a situation as you could possibly imagine. And Kalen DeBoer loses to Vanderbilt. He loses to an Oklahoma team that went 2-6 in SEC play, and they lost to them by 3 touchdowns. He loses to a Michigan team that cannot throw and whose best players have opted out of the bowl game. And now he loses to a Florida State team, which may be good. It may be good, but all we know right now is Florida State went 2-10 last year and beat the crap out of Alabama today.
Yeah. I remember writing the column off of the Vanderbilt game last year saying this is a game that Nick Saban, they won 100 in a row. How could he possibly do it? And to think that it could have happened 3 more times in less than a calendar year. We're talking about 10 months of real time.
$60.1 million is the buyout after this season, if you're wondering, which I think a lot of you Alabama fans are probably wondering. Or he's just leaving.
Are we doing the buyout thing right now?
It's Alabama. I wrote this in a column. All right, you choose to replace Nick Saban in Alabama. You're choosing this. You're choosing us talking about your buyout after your first game in year 2. Like you opted for that. You could have stayed at Washington and you could have been a rich man and a happy man. But you chose to do this.
Do you think that Bama fans are there?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
100%. Even and I'm not talking about the lunatic fringe. I'm talking about the rank and file.
Lunatic fringe.
Because they got so used to this. It was commonplace. Like, they didn't lose to this type of team. They didn't lose this type of game ever. And now it's happening again and again and again. What did you see today from Alabama that suggests this will not happen multiple times again this season?
Nothing.
Okay, that's the problem.
Yeah.
That's the problem.
I thought that Florida State was the more physical team.
Mm-hmm.
The one thing
Alabama was making stupid mistakes. There was a play, I don't think ultimately this play didn't matter because Alabama did get the stop and force Florida State to punt ultimately. But there was a play, it was a 3rd down. The Alabama edge defender comes at Tommy Castellanos and looks like he has him for a sack, but loses contain. Tommy Castellanos then gets outside, gets the first down, and after he gets the first down, Damani Jackson, the Alabama corner, hits him on the sideline late. 15-yard penalty. Like that sort of thing didn't happen under Nick Saban.
Yeah.
Like you wouldn't have lost contain, and then you wouldn't have committed a penalty at the end of the play.
Yeah. The other thing that stood out to me with the game, Andy, was that, and I don't know because I know that Jeremy Bernard had almost 150 yards receiving.
But Simpson actually had a pretty good game.
There was
throwing
an inordinate amount of times that I can recall watching that game where Ty Simpson dropped back, had a clean pocket, and didn't throw the ball.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's
because I say good. He threw a lot. So he actually didn't have a very efficient game, throwing 5.9 yards per attempt. And then
But no, were people not getting open?
Didn't make good choices with the ball either. There was another instance where they had a 4th down play. Ty Simpson has a very clear path to run for the first down, tries to throw it to Ryan Williams and skips it at his feet.
Yeah, that was and if he would have gotten the first down and they would have scored there, they might have won.
I'll give you another stat.
Yeah.
Alabama gained 55 yards on its first offensive possession, which they marched right down the field. Looked like they were going to dominate this game. Between that moment and the 151 mark of the third quarter, they gained 2 rushing yards. 2.
Man. Yeah, I mean, we spent all offseason hearing the hype. I know that Alabama fans and Alabama's team was very confident coming into this game, and there's no other way to put it. That was just a disaster.
It was. And look, nobody's getting fired today. Nobody's getting bought out right now. Kalen Moore is going to have a chance to dig his way out of this. That's not an SEC game. Doesn't count for the SEC race. It's the 12-team college football playoff era. 1 loss doesn't end your season. That said, they cannot keep doing this. If they keep doing this, they're going to have to find another coach.
Yeah, if LSU loses the game that we're at tonight, the SEC might be having a hard evening on our podcast. So
Yeah.
we'll see. You know,
This is freaking Alabama. Like,
yeah,
Nick Saban made it a very hard job, set a very high standard, but you gotta at least show up in the games you're supposed to win.
yeah. Did not anticipate standing in this hallway here, listening to the marching band at Clemson, but here we are, and I guess that's what makes this wonderful sport so wonderful, Andy.
Yep.
We always joke about how it doesn't matter how much we know about the sport. We'll never pick the right game to be
We
at
don't
on a
know
Saturday.
anything about this.
Yeah,
let me just say it. I'm going to look at the camera and say, we don't know anything. If you didn't learn that from the game in Tallahassee, I don't know. I can't help you. We don't know anything.
It's week 1, too. It's week 1. Think about all the things that are going to be happening between now and the remainder of the season. It's been such a fun day, dude, and I cannot wait to watch this game here tonight.
It's a day of celebration, I guess, unless you're an Alabama or a Texas fan. But
get yourself a regular Coke, cherry Coke.
This is incredible this season. Already surprising us, already giving us crazy results. Let's go watch some Tigers play some Tigers in Death Valley.
Yeah. Which one's the real Death Valley? I guess we'll find out tonight. We'll be back tonight.